They were the purveyors and the keepers of the fruit of the tree of knowledge. They were the Gnostics, the knowers of good and evil. But the time came, as in all nations, when selfishness and egotism entered the heart of king and people alike, and slowly the hand of the great white brotherhood that it had fed ancient Egypt was withdrawn, and the powers of darkness transformed the land of glory into one of ruins, and the names of mighty kings were buried beneath the oblivion. Mighty cataclysms shook the world, and out of the land of darkness the great white brotherhood led the faithful few into the promised land. Egypt, the land of glory, disintegrated into dust. The great temples of the pharaohs are ruins, and the temples of Isis are but broken heaps of sandstone. But what of the priest kings who labored there in the days of its glory? Well, ladies and gentlemen, they are still with us, for those who were leaders before are leaders now, if they have continued to walk the path. Although his scepter be gone and his priestly vestments molded away, the priest-king still walks the earth with the dignity and the power and the childlike simplicity that made him great before. He no longer wears the robes of his order. He wears a suit and a tie. Yet although he bears no credentials, he bears the secret signs and handshakes and whispered passwords. And he is as much a priest-king now as then, for he still bears the true insignia of his rank. The coiled serpent has given place to knowledge and lies and deception. The coiled serpent has given the world both good and evil. The hand that bestowed the riches of the past does very little acts of kindness now. Although he no longer carries the scepters of self-mastery, still he manifests that mastery in his daily life, or so he manages to fool himself that he does. And although the altar fires within the temple of Karnak have long been dead, the true fire still burns, and before it he still bows as he bowed in the days of Egypt's glory. And while the Branch Davidians, the children, the men and women, were being consumed by the flames, agents of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and the Federal Bureau of Investigation were seen to raise their arms into the air and bow to the fire. Although the priest is no longer his counselor and the wise ones of his country no longer aid him in problems of state, still he is never alone, for the priests in white and the counselors in blue still march with him and whisper words of strength when he needs them. And there are always the hollow, sacred, secretive, secure halls of the lodge. And still in the invisible ether about the pyramids of Giza, the initiations continue. Still the initiate receives the insignia of his rank, the coiled serpent. Before that fire he makes his vows, and upon the burning altar of his own higher being he lays his crown and his scepter, his robes and his jewels, his hates and his fears, and sanctifies his life as a priest-king, and swears to serve none but his own higher self, the God within. The initiates of the flame. He who lives the life shall know the doctrine. To all ancient peoples, fire was a symbol of the divine one dwelling in the innermost parts of all things. Robert Flood, a Rosicrucian mystic, writing in the 17th century, declared that the fire of the philosophers was divided into three parts: First, a visible fire, which is the source of physical light and heat. Second, an invisible or astral fire, which enlightens and warns the soul. Third, a spiritual or divine fire, which in the universe is known as God and in man as Spirit. The initiates who took their oaths in the presence of the flame renounced the lesser concerns of ordinary life and freed from the attachments of this material sphere, these purified souls became custodians of that symbolic flame of wisdom which they say is the true light of the world. This light is a manifestation of what they call the one universal life, that active agent whose impulses are the cause of all sidereal phenomena. Where in antiquity this flame of light, this spirit fire, was the object of a universal adoration and was worshipped as the very presence of God himself, it now lies buried beneath the ruins of man's fallen temple. Obscured by the paramount interests of the flesh, it emits but the faintest gleam in this non-philosophic age, except hidden behind the veil of the mysteries, practiced in secret in the depths of the night in the lodge, carried in symbolism and mystery throughout the world. The great white brotherhood, I can assure you, lives and is in control. Few realize that even at the present stage of civilization in this world, there are souls who, like the priests of the ancient temples, walk the earth and watch and guard the sacred fires that burn upon the altar of humanity. They call themselves purified ones. They are who have renounced the life of this sphere in order to guard and protect the flame, that spiritual principle in man now hidden beneath the ruins of his fallen temple. And all this symbolic mumbo-jumbo means is secular humanism, the concept that man himself is God. You see, they not only lie to you, they not only deceive you, they not only manipulate you, but they lie to themselves, they deceive themselves, and they manipulate those below them. And as we think of the nations that are past, of Greece and Rome and the grandeur that was surely Egypt's, we sigh as we recall the story of their fall, and we watch the nations of today, not knowing which will be the next to draw its shroud around itself and join that great ghostly file of peoples that are dead. But everywhere, even in the rise and fall of nations, we see through the haze of materiality, justice. Everywhere we see reward not of man, but of the invincible one, the eternal flame. The eternal flame that burns in mockery upon the grave of our fallen President, John F. Kennedy. The eternal flame that stands atop the obelisk in Dealey Plaza. The fire that burns on the sacred altar of Cosmos, that great fire which is called the never-dying Spirit of God, the Son, spelled S-U-N, lest there be any fools listening. If we turn again to the races now dead, we shall, if we look, find the cause of their destruction. It's not difficult. It was a loss of morality, the disintegration of the family, the proliferation of greed, selfishness amongst those who were supposed to serve the government or the public. Degeneracy lust and passion, hates and fears crept into the souls of Greece and Rome, and black magic overshadowed Egypt. A mighty nation died, buried beneath the dead ashes of its own spiritual fire. But the flame did not die. The flame has never died, like spirit, of which it is the essence. It cannot die, because to the mysteries it is life, and life cannot cease to be. In some wilderness of land or sea it rested once again, and there rose a mighty nation around that flame. So history goes on through the ages. As long as people are true to the flame, it remains. And when they cease to nourish it with their lives, it goes on to other lands and other worlds. Those who worship this flame are now called heathens, and this is why they hate Christians. Christians call them heathens. Little do they realize that they are heathen themselves. And I'm talking about those who call these heathens. You see, in the mysteries, they claim that they are baptized with the Holy Spirit, which is fire. For fire is light, and the children of the flame are the sons of light, even as God is light. However, ladies and gentlemen, however much it sounds as if they believe the same as you, this, again, is a metaphor for the esoteric truth of what they really believe. For they believe that the God of the Bible is an evil God who held man prisoner in the Garden of Eden in the bonds of the chains of ignorance. And that man was set free, given his opportunity by Lucifer through his agent Satan with the gift of intellect. And that Lucifer is the God of light, not Jesus Christ, who said, I am the way, the truth, and the light. There are those who have for ages labored with man to help him to kindle with him themselves this spark, which is, they say, man's divine birthright. And they live their lives by self-sacrifice and service to the great plan, the great work. And they tend to this fire, and who through ages have studied, have learned the mystery it contained, those whom we now call, those who know, now call the initiates of the flame, the philosophers of fire. For ages, they have labored toward the completion of what they call the great work. The plan, it's also called. And they've labored with man to help him to uncover what they call the light within himself. And on the pages of history throughout the ages, they have left their seal, the seal of fire.